could be very useful for continuity on the board moving forward. So if there was a hidden agenda here, that would solely be it on my part.
What does enabling vice restrictive mean?
For your board norms, it's a question of whether or not you would rather see your own individuals be more enabled as opposed to more restricted. Do you only do the things that the board specifically gives you allowance to do as a board member, or not? We had an early example of this. I don't mean to pull a pick of the scab, but I think Director Dean sees an enabling tool, and yet it was clear that the other board members felt it should have been more restrictive. And so what is your norm as a board, and how you're governing each other, and how you're policing each other, and how you're relating within your norms? So that's what I'm talking about, is do you take your norms and are they more enabling or are they more restrictive? And that is certainly the realm of the board and what you all would like to talk about.
Well, I guess I'm questioning the use of the term vice. Would that be versus, enabling versus restrictive?
Opposed to, juxtaposed of, yes.
I don't know, I'm asking a question.
Yes, it was as opposed to, yes. So we'll bring you back some suggested policies that reflect some of those areas and let you start working on those too. Strategic direction, again, is making sure there's clarity between the board and staff linkages, the board and general manager, the delegations, and again, it's a matter of shaping those in such a fashion that they become acknowledged, and that's how we respect the way we do our business. Director Davidson first launched, again, another example from today, first launched into, well, let's appoint a staff member, and then ultimately caught himself and said, no, let's direct Mitch to appoint a staff member to support us. And again, it goes right back here to the board and staff linkages that he was respectful of based upon his perspective. So, and then ultimately, the board and legal counsel, it's a matter of defining that relationship if you choose to, a little differently, or the board and the auditor. And certainly I would like to be very clear about the auditor. The auditor works for the board, not the general manager. And ultimately that's the way it always has to be. Legal counsel, you can have some variance on that, but with the auditor works for the board. And then unity of control. The unity of control within the board, and then ultimately how that reflects throughout the district. This gets back to those other issues in terms of how communications work around the agency and how communications can be effective, and the difference between what's a real communication coming in and what's not. The unity of control help us define that. And then ultimately, I'd like to get a little bit gamey with it, but identifying where we're going, what are our options. We either continue to be players and play the cards and try to push to higher levels of service, higher levels of accountability, higher levels of transparency, higher levels of many of the things that I've laid out in the outline. Higher levels of water, energy, the expansion of business services. That's subscription services that we're talking about. If you want to hold them, you're kind of moving to that whole deficit level. You are basically buttoning up and going to stay where you're at. And I would suggest if they're going to do that, you might as well just fold them and get out of the game. So where are we going is a key step, because that's ultimately, I think your vision is going to, your vision is going to be tied back into the same and the higher levels, and then describing what those are going to be, and making sure that we have the right values, behaviors, and culture to get there. The calendar that we're proposing is certainly one that lays out the workshop or the second meeting of the month going forward, as we start to get a balance of what kind of material do I bring forward, and then what kind of material would you like to edit or not edit. But outside of the vision is a work piece that really is the board's. Everything that then supports that vision, we as the management team and the staff members will put together and bring forward for you so that the work here will just be mostly editing and then ultimately putting your fingerprints on it. Do we really get the messages right or not? But next month we need to get together and really focus on completing the vision. I can frame that up with samples of other vision statements, whether they're from industry or whether they're from water agencies or third world countries, however you would like them. I can deliver lots of different options. And sometimes that's useful so that you get to pick and choose a little bit and make a smorgasbord of which ones really reflect. And the work there is to make sure that we capture it with our values and our behaviors. And so,
So this will be a part of our second meeting of each month, moving forward for the rest of the year.
the second meeting, trying to stay more focused on the workshop, more focused on brainstorming. And ultimately, it's intended not to be a highly regimented schedule, because if you all really want to get out on a brainstorm and have a great debate about what the board's functionality is going to be, then so be it. But I think as we get into July and August, we're going to have pretty much the framework of the thing in place. And then it's going to be more about what you want to do with it. And looking forward, you get into October and then say, what do we need to get there? And that's going to be about whether framing up the right resource demands. And those resource obligations can't be made until probably the following summer anyway. So this is the kind of schedule, and again, it's deliberately not very, very fast.
Aggressive?
It's not aggressive because I'd rather not first overpromise, be under-deliver, because we're going to be writing most of this material, which means Larry and I, it's just, but we want to have your involvement on it. So that means coming back in these workshop sessions and feeding you the stuff and let you just go on. And so that's kind of the layout, how we have it.
So what is staff's involvement going to be?
We are going to take the vision that is laid out by the board and then try to bring back the descriptors and the categories to develop the strategic plan behind it. So that the board is not trying to draft, the board is actually editing more than drafting.
I'm just, I guess I meant it differently, not as far as the writing of it, but I meant input.
For just the vision, or once you have the vision statement, we'll be bringing each of the 7 pieces together for you in your strategic plan.
So as far as, members of our staff interacting with the board to help facilitate this, we're not going to do that. In the past, we've generally, it seems like when we've done a strategic plan, we've at least asked our staff to, what are your points of view? What do you think the priorities are? Is that a step we're not going to do anymore? Or?
Well, we were specifically asked to prioritize, give a feel for how we would rank certain areas, and we can continue to do that. The involvement of the key managerial team would certainly be here, available. Ultimately, they're certainly going to be involved with drafting these things, listening to what you're saying here, and trying to capture those sentiments.
Does anybody else kind of get where I'm headed? It's just a lot of times well, in the past, whether it's been good or bad, but, you know, we've at least had, you know, the department heads, you know, be able to bounce their ideas back, because, you know, we don't deal day-to-day with operations, and, you know, we get reports, and a lot of the day-to-day concerns and such don't get to us unless they become a problem. So, you know, it would be, I would think that we would want an opportunity where at some point where we get to have a meeting with department heads and management to, you know, see if they, because we don't want to create a vision that the staff doesn't want to follow or doesn't need is necessary to follow. I mean, I think that we want to find out what they think, or I at least want to think what their priorities are, and see where we match up, because I think the two go together. It's hard to develop something that,
Certainly, I got it. I mean, ultimately, if you think for the next 6 months, I'm going to be standing here with a pen in my hand, no, it's not the goal. The goal here is to introduce, certainly, you'll see the managers here, and be able to talk about that.
and I also just want to, in regards to the calendar, you know, it's kind of an interesting time to finish a strategic plan, right when you know, a new board takes office.
I told you my hidden agenda is to have continuity forward. And ultimately, by laying out that strategic plan, in the case of the new board, depending on how many of you all are back, depending on what the circumstances are, utilizing your experience that you all gained from the time you've been here, for reasonable and rational people, when you come on, wouldn't it be nice to have had a well-thought-out strategic plan and kind of know where the directions are going in order to carry it forward, so that by the time you get enough experience in the board seat to then want to change direction, you've actually had something to carry you forward for a couple of years.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
You know, maybe I'm Pollyannish. The timing is important in that we have a mandate within our financial plan to do some things that are very substantive. And those have to be consistent with the vision of the board.
Okay.
And so, yeah. That really concludes my presentation of all the places I really need to go today. So unless there's questions or other direction, I guess there's room for public comment or input, and then we conclude my report.
Well, thank you, Mitch. I think we've been commenting here at the board level throughout the presentation, and there hasn't been an opportunity for public comment. So let's call for public comment at this point. Any members? Okay, seeing none. Dennis?
I've seemed like hundreds of these things done in the past, and they almost invariably end up being a lot of work for little benefit. And there's a side of me that says, you know, I don't want to belittle this in any way, but at the same time, I've just seen a lot of it, well, even back when I did our 5-year plan, when June was still here. We spent an awful lot of energy on that plan, took a lot of staff time, and some good studies done, but we have not revisited it as a interview which we promised we would. And I'm not criticizing that outcome, I'm criticizing that they all tend to end up in that deal, that there's nothing here that bothers me, but I worry that if we're doing this instead of actually running the district, that we're taking away from our efficiency.
It's a fair comment. All I can tell you is that in order to deliver the kinds of efficiencies that I need to deliver, I mean, we've got to have a 20-some-odd% reduction in our O&M budgets. And those have to be consistent with where you as a board want to take the district. And there are going to be a need for some real prioritization that comes, that drives along. And the only way we can get there is if I got a board with a common vision. And so, yes, I hear your concern about too often these become exercises that don't carry forward, or they become, paperweights at best. My goal is to get a strategic planning document so we understand what the common vision is, and then to develop you a 5-year business plan that gets you where you got to be in terms of making our financial obligations work. And that's a pretty intense thing to do in the next couple of years, to be quite frank. And I can't do it in a closet, and this is the best process tools to get the board involvement. This is where the board involvement is, which is at that strategic level.
My point, if I could just wrap this up a little bit from my standpoint, my only point is that I'm not disagreeing with the need to do something like this. I am trying to make a point that too often I've seen these things take an awful lot of staff time and energy and expense for very little benefit.
Yes, and we're cautious and concerned about it, but as you've acknowledged in the past, is we've got to get after these. This is a place that we've got to also start working, and we have to start working at these also in a framework that's consistent with the vision that the board sets out.
I agree. But I feel that it needs to be said that these things tend to go off on a tangent to become a job unto itself more than to running the district.
And I salute that, and I sure hope we can keep it from getting there.
Yeah, at one level, I agree with Dennis. But a strategic plan or a strategic business plan is a design framework to kind of create pathways. And a strategic plan only has value when it becomes an action plan. And I look back over the last couple of years, and I look at the fundamental assumptions that were contained in that original strategic business plan, and I saw the critical importance of a rate study and ultimately a rate increase that would lead to the next level, which would be the development of our capital repair and replacement, which is a huge ongoing project. And so I see some success coming out of that particular plan. Our circumstances different today than they were when we put that thing together. In some respects, yes. And I think it's appropriate to have this review, but I don't want to minimize the fact that we actually have done things that are contained within that strategic business plan, and it's the actions that really matter.
Yes, but those actions are without context if you don't have the overarching strategic plan in place.
Which we did, I think.
Well, we didn't, because the strategic plan in place was from 2003. And so, strategic business plan is almost an oxymoron. It was a fad at the time. There were several agencies that went that way, just as a nice label to put onto a business plan. You had a business plan, and the business plan, arguably, we're still following pieces of it that took traction and still implementing pieces of it, from communications to other elements. But in order to truly stay strategic, it's all about relationships and alignments. I would cite an example of East Bay Mud. East Bay Mud, 20 years ago, made a strategic decision to make nice with upcountry relationships. They didn't say how they were going to do that in that strategic decision. They just simply went about it. And now they're seeing one of those action items here at this other end that's inconsistent with that strategic direction that they were following. And ultimately, it's kind of interesting to see how it's playing out now, where they in fact don't want to risk that relationship that they developed because they've got that investment. But it didn't map out specific actions. It was all about changing behaviors.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Mitch. Dennis, Bob? Anything?
No, I had my say.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6 on our agenda, board reports, information, future agenda items. Start with Director Dooley. Any board reports today?
I'd like to do a brief response to Bertha's initial comment about nobody from CCWD being at the award ceremony the other night at the high school. I went last year. I was asked if I wanted to go this year, and I begged off. So for nobody being there, that's my fault. When I went there last year, it seemed like I sat there for 2.5 hours before my turn came up, and everybody been giving 10, 15-minute talks. And as I walked up there, and I tried to keep it down to a 5-minute talk, and as I got up there, somebody shouted at me, "Keep it short, keep it short." And so I tried, and I felt like I didn't even get half the points I wanted to get across. So the decision was mine not to participate, but it sounded as though maybe I should have.
You kept it short.
Yes, I did. And I felt as though I didn't get, by holding it short, I didn't have any cohesive presentation to make it in the sense that I wanted to make it.
I don't think I've ever heard you speak for 5 minutes. Combined in a meeting.
I was going to try.
You know, Janice, Bill spoke to me about that, and so just on a going forward basis, that's all.
Bill? Bill who?
Excuse me, Scott.
Okay.
Just an aqua board meeting Friday, that's about it.
I don't have anything really more.
Okay.
I've
Director
said my
Dean,
piece.
That's it? Okay. We do have a Finance Committee meeting coming up on Monday, June 2nd here, 2 PM at the district office. And the Calaveras High School, and I did speak with Bertha briefly in our break. The Calaveras High School Award Night here in town is at 7 PM on Monday. And I will be there to present the award to the Kelly Arola, the scholarship winner from Calaveras High School. That's all I have. Don?
Next Tuesday, I know you're registered, Scott. Mountain Counties is having a program, and this is
Friday.
Is it next Friday? Next Friday. This is a rare opportunity. We've got the chair of Delta Stewardship Commission, that's Randy Fiorini. We've got the director of DWR, Mark Cowan there, and then we have Felicia from state, the president of or the chair of the State Water Resource Control Board. And it's going to be a roundtable with questions afterwards. So if you're interested in knowing what's going on at the state right now and what they're thinking, this is something you don't want to miss. Also, I have the Finance Committee with Scott. I wanted to report out on the Tunnel Tap Ad Hoc Committee. This was brought to CCWD during a North Fork meeting where UWPA was interested in partnering with CCWD ongoing for a project regarding the tunnel tap. And at that point, we determined, or I should say the staff determined that that probably wasn't a viable project. After being approached by several people, as there was potential there, we requested the ad hoc committee. Dennis and I were appointed. We met with UWPA's staff. We went to the tunnel tap. We looked at what they wanted to do. We met with the president of their board, asked a bunch of questions. We talked to consultants in terms of potential, and ultimately, it would have been a positive revenue source for CCWD, but at the last moment, they determined that it would not be a standalone project. It would have to open up their FERC license on their project, and they were very, very nervous that there could be some real negative aspects to opening up their FERC contract. So they, at that point, pulled out, and we're bringing to the board that this has potential, but until UWPA sees the viability of it, it's not an option for CCWD. We cannot do this alone. This would have had to have been a partnership. Also, I wanted to say, this was a real pleasure working on this. Dennis and I work really well together, and I think we ask a lot of the right questions, and I feel like that we really did good on this. So I was really, really happy with the process. And you can eliminate the ad hoc committee at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you for that report. Anything?
And Dennis.
And Dennis, thank you for your work on that project as well.
I just followed his lead.
And yeah, that mountain, Don did bring up the Mountain Counties joint meeting with Aqua. It's going to be in Placerville on Friday, June 6th. It starts at 9:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. And I'm not quite sure it's what the location is.
I don't either.
Something Mansion.
Sequoia, it's in Placerville.
Placerville.
I knew it was in Placerville, okay. All right, Director Davidson.
I just have one comment, and it's in regards to our technological upgrades. I brought this up to Mitch's attention last week through an email. I've had an email created for me by the district, and although I've been told I was briefed on it, I don't recall that. I want my email address to be the address that people, when there's a link to, all of our board members have a link on the website now. I just checked it today, and mine's still Jeff Davidson, CCWD @Earthlink. That's not my email address. My email address is jeffdavidson@comcast.net. What has to occur when somebody sends me an email, when somebody checks the board website, is it has to go through staff and then comes to me. And I've recently got some emails that were forwarded to me from staff that I normally would have gotten immediately, that were after the fact of the conversation. And so I either need to get an explanation of why that's so critical that we have that, and a better way to get that information to me, or I want my original email address, which has worked very well for me for the last 14 years, to be the email address that's on my contact for the district.
You know, is that the only thing you wanted to report
Yeah.
on? On that topic, I have a little bit of a problem with it as well. Several times and again, it is staff forwarding my email addresses to me, and sometimes it's a day late, sometimes it's 2 days late. Many times, we receive information the day before a meeting, the day before a regular board meeting, which is on a Wednesday. We'll get a lot of emails to that account on a Tuesday or a Monday night. It seems like it's mostly on Tuesday, and I don't have an opportunity to get them or review them before the meeting starts. So I've showed up at several meetings. We've even had people in the audience say, and I know you got my material, I sent it out yesterday and hadn't seen it yet. I didn't know what they were talking about. Get home later on that day, and oh yeah, there is an email that was forwarded from the district. So, and I don't remember being briefed on it all either. It was just emails that were created in association with our website that people can send us stuff, but it doesn't get to us. It gets to staff, and then sooner or later it gets to the board.
You can open up your email directly. Those email accounts were opened
by direction of the board during the rate studies in order to make sure that there were emails available to the customers on the website. Ultimately, the Director Davidson's email that he's referred to in terms of has always been there is still there. That's still his email account. We have staff members that go in order to make sure that these don't get too old with information that never gets opened up. So ultimately,
But why is it different? Why can't we have our regular email address?
you can have your regular email address. The caution is that anything that's on your email address may be discoverable.
Well, that's, I've never had any issue with anything being discoverable, and it creates, what it creates for me is it creates, I only need to have one email address. I can do, so far I've been able to do all my business with that, and business and CCWD business. I think actually what you've created is discoverable. I think my personal email that I pay for is not discoverable, but I really don't care. For me, it's a matter of, now I can even have clients forwarding stuff to you because, they know I'm a CCWD director. So if they're challenged to find my email address, they may go to that site and then they'll get the wrong email address.
Okay, we can put the website, or on the website, your personal email if that's your preference. That's what I put to you back in the response email, and ultimately, any board member could have direct access to those emails, as I thought you did, in terms of your passwords. And all if we were doing is trying to make sure that things didn't get old there by moving them on every few days.
How was that, when you said during the board hearings, that was, you gave us our passwords and everything during those board hearings?
During the process, yes, they were sent out.
Maybe you could forward me that information, because I don't remember getting that,
Okay.
but as it is, my request is, it's Jeff Davidson, CCW at Comcast.net.
We'll make that change for you.
Okay, thank you.
I really think we need to look at a policy regarding electronic stuff, not just for this type of a thing, but policy in terms of who you can send an email to and who you can't send an email to. So I'd like to have some kind of let's look at that as a
Future
agenda
agenda.
item.
Okay. A future agenda item for, to discuss our emails, accounts, and how. And I would like, if the concern was discoverable versus not being discoverable, maybe a council can provide us some insight on that subject and how that. I don't even have access to that. I don't think I have access to it, and if I do, and there's a password, and who else has access to it? And then sometimes I'm thinking that members of the public might want to be sending the board an email because they had dissatisfaction at the counter or on the telephone with staff. And so, and that's the other thing, that are we really being transparent by, now they send an email to us or intend to send it to board, and it actually ends up at staff again.
It's really not coming to staff. It's really to you. It's just staff cleans out the inboxes so that things don't sit there. Mona's the only one that I'm aware of that knows what those passwords are, so we'll refresh them for you. In the Director Davidson's case, we'll substitute the email address, and any other board members that would like to substitute them, we'll be happy to do that.
I may want to do that after our agenda item when we have a full discussion and disclosure on how that works. Okay, board reports, we're done. Our next board meetings, item number 7, Wednesday, June 11th, 2014, 9 a.m. right here in this room. And then Wednesday, June 25th, 2014, 9 a.m., we're having our regular board meeting, which will be our workshop. We're going to, item 8, we're going into closed session. The item is public employee performance evaluation, general manager, government code section 54957. Thank you. Recess.